let's talk about all the changes that are going to be happening to the Crest system come 11.1. Now, I know that some of these changes that I'm going to be talking about happen on the 11.0.7 patch, but say you took a break and you're going to come back for Season 2, I think this is probably a pretty decent video to talk about all the stuff that's changing with the Crest system. Additionally, we have some changes that are happening exclusively on 11.1, and I think that this is probably a good video to just kind of package all of this stuff together and kind of talk about it all at once, and whether or not this is a good thing or bad thing, or just in general how it's going to change just your general gameplay. First and foremost, if you didn't play all of Season 1, what you need to know is that Mythic Plus now drops more gilded crests just in general. Blizzard's valuing your time a little bit more, and at 8+, you're going to basically be getting more gilded crests per key level. And as you go up all the way up until the plus 12 level, you are going to be getting more crests whenever you beat the timer, all the way up to 20 crests. Now, the cap is still going to be a weekly cap of 90. So this isn't changing, but the rate at which you get crests is going to increase. Now, for those of you who are raiding Mythic, the rate in which crest drops purely if you're just doing raid hasn't increased. Additionally, the flight stone drop rate hasn't necessarily increased. So there's still going to be a little bit of bottlenecking if you're only a raid focused player, or you're going to have a little bit of bottlenecking with flight stones as well. In addition to this, Blizzard cut back on how difficult it was to actually craft gear. So the Harbinger of the Gilded achievement now requires item level 636 in every slot with 639. So this is 3 item levels reduced. Now, I suspect that this is going to be the case as well. This will also be the starting point for Season 2. Now, this is going to be the case for next season as well, where crafted gear is going to be able to allow you to get the Harbinger of the Gilded achievement a little bit faster. The gearing pace is still going to be pretty long because we're not at 4 out of 4 for the upgrades. We're still going to be at 6 out of 6. So the 13 item level. So you're still going to take you a while, but the Harbinger of the Gilded achievement is now going to be able to be gained a little bit faster. The number of Gilded Harbinger Crests needed to purchase an Ascent Harbinger Crest reduced to 60 was 90. Now, we had a situation in Season 1 where you never crafted gear. Now we're going to a situation in Season 2 where you pretty much are going to craft on CD, and every single time you have that Tuesday spark show up, you're going to be looking to craft gear because this is going to be a lot more crest efficient than it was. In addition to that, with it being more crest efficient, you're still going to have leftover crests to continue to upgrade your items. And that was one of the biggest issues with the Season 1 stuff, especially if you were doing the 10+, is if you had those myth track pieces of gear, you really wanted to upgrade them. And so you kind of forewent actually crafting gear if you had an excess of these myth track pieces. Now, obviously, it wasn't the case for everybody, but say you did. It happened where you weren't crafting. Now you're basically going to be crafting on CD at 60. This is what it was basically back in Dragonflight, where you're going to be crafting pretty much as much gear as you possibly can early on in the season, allowing you to get a lot more myth gear. And again, with the crest increase, the amount of crest that you're going to be having, it should make this a little bit easier to craft. In addition to that, Harbinger crests and the required amount needed to purchase trade-up bags has been reduced to 45 and was previously 90. This is great. Once you have all of your hero track crests utilized for the entirety of the season, trading those up is actually going to be a lot easier. You are still going to be, the conversion is going to be 45 to 15 gilded, from 45 hero to 15 gilded. So the conversion isn't like perfect, but it's going to reduce the amount of content that you're necessarily going to have to do. And for players who say you do a couple of 10s a week, but then you actually will like clear the heroic raid or something like that, after you're done with your gilded crests and you have an excess of Harbinger crests, this trade up is probably a great opportunity for you to be able to get a lot more of these gilded crests just in general. And honestly, just like fast tracking your gearing, you get a lot more crafted gear. And I think that this is going to be a better system for the average player to just continue to progress the gear a little bit faster in Season 2 than it was in Season 1. And I think that's just in general a pretty good thing. In addition to that, you're able to get a weekly cap of 18 gilded crests from tier 11 delves in Season 2. So for those players who aren't able to do like a +8, you are going to be able to get some gilded crests from tier 11 delves. Now, tier 11 delves are actually pretty difficult depending on your class or your specialization. For some classes, it can actually be pretty easy. For other classes, like a priest or whatever, it's probably going to be a little bit harder. A lot of that comes down to the fact that auto attacks and white swing damage is probably the hardest part of delves, just in general. But say you can do a tier 11 delve and you don't really want to spend that time doing an 8, or you don't want to necessarily spend that time like doing Mythic Plus dungeons, you absolutely can get Gilded Crest from Delves. And I think this is going to improve that solo player experience that we saw in Season 1. I don't think that Delves are like the most interesting content for me personally, but it's continuing to make the system flow a lot better for Season 2 compared to where it was in Season 1. Now, you could get Gilded Crest from Delves in Season 1, but that required the map, and the map was, you know, you didn't get a lot of them. In addition to that, you only got 3 Gilded Crests whenever you used a map, and so like you could argue that you got Gilded Crest from them in Season 1, but you weren't getting an excess, and you weren't really able to do that. Getting 18 Gilded Crests from Tier 11 Delves in Season 2, I think that your primary source of Gilded Crests, if you're just like a big Delve guy, is going to be, yeah, if you're able to get the 18 Gilded Crests a week, that's big. And if you do the trade-up bags after you get all of your gear upgraded to that heroic track cap, that's going to be perfect. And as we saw last season, it was actually pretty fast to get a bunch of your gear upgraded to that heroic track cap, especially if you were able to get any of the gear, like if you got any myth track gear, that would actually fast track that slot as well. And so it was pretty fast to get all of the gear at that hero track cap to the point where it made sense for you to actually start using the trade up bags. The last thing, and this is probably one of the biggest changes for next season, is that there is a renowned track in the Galagio zone, and with there be a loyalty raid renowned track. The renowned track is going to include a couple things, such as a stacking raid buff. It's going to have the augment runes, and there's going to be a dinar-like currency. For those who haven't played, what dinars basically are is it is deterministic loot, where you are able to walk to a vendor and you are able to purchase specific cantrip style effect items. So say there's like a ring with like a damage proc on it, or say there's like, you know, a necklace with like a damage proc on it. The Sikran necklace or the Roshanon cloak from this season would probably be good examples or good conduits to what I'm kind of just trying to describe. Those are purchasable. In addition to that, all baseline weapons are purchasable, and all trinkets from the raid are going to be purchasable on that renowned track with a dinar style effect. And that's going to allow you to be able to get some pretty sizable upgrades. So for me personally, things like this are really great for me. I haven't been raiding Mythic necessarily this season. You know, I've been killing some of the bosses, but I haven't necessarily been doing prog. You know, I'm basically doing what I can do in LFG for the Mythic raid. And so I'm missing out on things such as like a Myth Track Spy Masters, or a Myth Track Queen Ansurek ring, or like maybe like a Mad Queen's Mandate. And so whenever you're able to get these all the way up to, I think it's 16 and 19 are the dinar levels. Anyways, you know, whenever you get the dinars, it's 17 and 19. Yeah. So at 17 and 19, whenever you're able to actually get these dinars, that's actually going to be a pretty sizable increase for these players who don't necessarily want to do like really late prog. Maybe you got a piece of gear that was like your heroic best. Say you're a tank this season and you wanted the Swarm Lord's trinket off of Silken Court. Basically, everybody who ever did Silken Court either wanted Swarm Lords or they wanted the Spy Master's Web trinket, right? And so it was actually kind of difficult if you were a solo player who you weren't grouping up with like a guild or something like that to actually get it, because everybody was rolling on those pieces of gear. And so it was actually difficult for you to be that like solo player to actually be able to get them. And so now next season, it's going to be a lot more achievable for you to be able to obtain these chase items that you want and that could actually make your gameplay a lot more fun. Those are the big changes that we're actually seeing in terms of like the gearing system in Season 2. It's not like huge changes, but I think that the biggest changes is like the acquisition process on these Gilded Crests and the fact that you're going to be crafting basically on CD. Those are the two big key points that you're going to want to be looking at. And then as you get that raid renown track up to the 17 and that 19 and getting those dinars for the chase items, those are things that you should be looking out for just in general. Overall, I'm excited for Season 2. I've kind of been bummed out with content drought, but I'm really excited to see what's coming up in 11.1. The PTR should probably be coming up soon if I had to make a guess, and hopefully we get a patch date launch in the near future as well. And I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.